I was watching the weeping and gnashing of teeth on social media, and I immediately thought of our next guest, my friend J. Christian Adams, former U.S. attorney. He is New York Times bestselling author of the book Injustice. And I could feel the righteousness in the tweets. They were very simple little tweets. My friend, it's good to see you, J. Christian Adams. Because this was, we knew that it was going to be a struggle for Senate Democrats to push HR 1 through. This is, for those who are unfamiliar with it, one of the worst pieces of legislation, I think, perhaps in our lifetimes, nationalizing federal elections, taking it away from the states, circumventing the Constitution, having taxpayers fund it, mandated mail-in ballot voting, no ID. I mean, it's just a basket of awfulness. And it's defeated. Tell us what happened.
Well, what happened was, give credit where credit is due. Kirsten Sinema said that she believes in the filibuster no matter if she's in the majority or minority party. Joe Manchin is on the same boat. He's a little less principled. And so because of the filibuster, this great device that creates consensus among the states, Dana, the filibuster gets... you have to have a lot of states that agree to something before you change the constitutional arrangement. And beautiful, it failed. The progressive left, like you said, wailing and gnashing of teeth. They're like diabolical, screaming and wailing and demanding. It's amazing to watch when they lose. But they're going to regroup, but we don't have to live under H.R. 1.
Thank heavens, because that just, I was thinking, how in the world would we ever be able to hold our elected officials accountable and even clean up voter rolls? I mean, you wouldn't even be able to do that, in your state. Now, you mentioned, talking to J. Christian Adams, you mentioned Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin, who he's got a lot of power this time around. He and Kristen Sinema, not too well liked by the Marxist core of their party. And he had said something that I thought was quite interesting. He was talking to the press, and it just seemed like an aside comment, but he said that he was thinking about the unity of the Democrat Party. And I thought, well, that really should not be the issue at hand here. It should be rather, as you just said, trying to get consensus from the states. And that's one of the reasons why the Constitution allows the filibuster when things are so sharply divided.
Right. And look, you said this is a really bad, one of the worst pieces of legislation. I would take Obamacare before I take H.R. 1.
Wow.
No, I'm serious.
Wow.
Because look, this totally rearranges the relationship between the states and the federal government in the most radical possible way, with centralized control, with no transparency, with bureaucrats in charge of state elections. It reorders the whole system. And it does all the things the founders feared the most. And I got to tell you, it's a good day when liberty and limited government and decentralization win.
Very much so. J. Christian Adams, author of the best-selling book Injustice, looking at the Obama DOJ. So it's done for now. Because one of the things that we always see is that they try to push through this this ginormous bill, and then when it fails, it's almost like an Overton window approach. Okay, well, we'll just do one at a time, one bit at a time. So is that the plan?
Yeah, I call it the asteroids effect, where you play asteroids in the 80s, like a video game,
yeah.
And that big, slow asteroid's coming at you, and you kill it, and then suddenly there's 1,000 fast ones. And I think that's what they've got planned. They've already are talking about what is called the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which gives the federal government the same control that H.R. 1 would have given. Dana, if they're going to move a polling place under this John Lewis bill from a school library to a school cafeteria, bureaucrats back at the DOJ have to approve it. Some people call it the Nancy Pelosi Power Grab Act. I wish it were, because you can unelect Nancy Pelosi. These are bureaucrats who I used to work with the Justice Department, who'd be micromanaging state elections.
And we know, J. Christian Adams, we know that they would immediately respond to any concern that taxpayers, say, in very red Nebraska or Missouri have about their voting integrity, right? We know this of them.
Yeah, I got to tell you, they despise flyover country, the people who work there. I used to work with them. They have contempt for the South, for the Midwest. They actually think it's like some sort of spoof.
I find those types of people incredibly fascinating. So of this, which asteroid do you think is going to hit us first? Which one are we going to, it's the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You think it's that?
Right. That's the big, it's big and slow, just like H.R. 1 was. But then they've got a whole agenda to, do mandatory same-day registration or banning voter ID on the federal level. So no more voter ID. They've got all sorts of advocates who want to break that up. So the Republicans somewhere caved, like they're so good at doing, especially, well, we won't name them.
Yeah,
In particular.
it's either Republicans cave or usually whenever Democrats fail, it's not because they've been out thwarted by Democrats or Republicans in the Senate or the House. It's usually because Democrats go too far. I mean, for instance, Kamala Harris has never wanted to go to the border now because I guess Trump's going to the border with Abbott, and because I guess they looked at some internal polling. Now she's going to the border. Joe Biden is talking about gun crime coming up later on. None of this stuff polls well for them, though. And just like with immigration, Kamala Harris was getting hit by Democrat mayors, Democrat voters, Hispanics that were in these mostly blue areas that started voting more and more red. And when you look at the polling going back to voting and voter ID, that's not supported even by people who identify as Democrat, like likely voters or registered voters who identify as Democrat. They don't support it. So is this a case of them kind of looking at going too far and then realizing it almost too late?
It might be, but I'm not sure they ever realize it because they're so locked into their ideology. You brought up voter ID. The demographics who support voter ID, here they are: Democrats, Republicans, white, black, Hispanic, everybody. The only demographic that doesn't is like advanced degree white liberals. That's the only one. And to show that they don't get it, they're having a hearing tomorrow in Congress on the John Lewis Act. And who's their top witness? It's Eric Holder. It's like, really?
My.
Thank you. Can I give you a ride to the hearing?
Oh my, that's like $1 million campaign footage that they're just making the ads for Republicans. K Street's going to have it easy this next election cycle. But, and I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat, there were a lot of questions. Like I had someone who was illegally registered at my home address, and I did not realize the fight that you actually, and this is just going to my local area, my election board, and getting just one person who's illegally registered and cast a vote with my address, getting that person removed. I cannot imagine how much more impossible or difficult it would be if this was all the way in Washington, D.C., with the people, as you said, really disdain flyover country.
And right, at the Public Interest Legal Foundation, we're suing states to get voter rolls cleaned up. We found a guy in Pittsburgh registered 7 times. 7 times. His name's Rashad Slade from Swissvale, PA. And they didn't want to remove him. The 6 of them, just give us 6 removals. So
how is that? The people that are looking at this, because someone's looking at some point, they see this guy's name 6, 7 times here. Okay, something's not right. There's not that many people at this address named that. It's not a coincidence. This is false. It's so incredibly obvious. But going into 2022, we're already hearing that maybe this could be a landslide. Maybe it could be like a repeat of a shellacking like we saw in 2010. It's understandable, the party that, really didn't think that there was any kind of shenanigans going on anywhere at all, even in small amounts in the country. Why they would want to we'll take the burden of having to clean up those voter rolls from you, and we'll handle it. They act like this is a courtesy, but it's more like a cheat.
Well, right. And part of the problem with the voter rolls is when you start cranking in vote by mail. So Rashawn Slade in Pennsylvania would get 7 ballots if we hadn't caught it when we sued Pittsburgh in court. And so, but that's happening in Nevada, for example. Nevada, they've got vote by mail automatically there now, and their voter rolls are a mess. So you're going to be pumping ballots out into the apartment complex lobbies where people don't live anymore.
Yeah. And this fight, I would rather have, as Jefferson said, too much liberty to attend to than too little. But this is an ongoing fight. It really is. And we appreciate your work on it and everything that you do. J. Christian Adams, you can find him at Election Law Center on Twitter, and also PIL Foundation on Twitter as well. So good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Dana, take care.
You too.
Thanks a lot.